Steve Moran here with Senior Housing Forum, and I am sitting in the Benchmark Senior Living corporate offices with my friends Tom Grape and Veronica Barber, and you guys are doing some really cool stuff, and so we're going to just have a little conversation about some of that. The first place I want to start is you guys are really tackling this diversity issue in senior living, which isn't very diverse. And can you just, I mean, why did you decide to do that? Because it's kind of a tough, scary thing to do.
Well, I'll jump in. First of all, we don't call it our corporate office, we call it our home office, and we're trying to come up with a better name than that. But corporate is too corporate, and home at least sounds homier. But so you said senior living isn't diverse. Actually, it's very diverse, except in the home office, corporate office of most of our peer companies. So our purpose statement for our company is to transform lives through human connection. So how can we do that if we don't include, and of course part of our purpose is to include our associates in that. And well, we know that a tremendous percentage of our associates come from a huge array of different cultures and backgrounds, and we are missing an enormous opportunity to make them feel welcome, to connect with them on a human scale, to do all the things that we're trying to do with our residents and families. If we're not being fully diverse, offering diversity training to our leaders, and being a fully inclusive company.
Yeah, I really like that. It's an area I've been thinking a lot about, and I think that it's really hard if I'm Anglo with a 4-year degree or an advanced degree, and I'm talking to somebody who was maybe born in another country, and just we look at the world through very different eyes, and what's obvious to me is not going to be what's obvious to them, and what's obvious to them isn't going to be obvious to me. So what are you doing to, I don't know how, even the right question, what are you doing to make it better? I'm going to do it that way.
I think it begins with education and sensitivity training, and having our leaders be aware of exactly those cultural differences and language differences, and exactly the fact that what you just mentioned, implicit bias, is something we all carry with us, and help people become aware of what our own implicit biases are, and to have there be ways for people to become aware of them, that there be ways for all of our associates to have ways to express how they have experienced it without there being any penalty for doing so, to have there be ways for people to be able to experience their own cultures, their own holidays, their own family traditions and the like, and have that all be welcome and part of the Benchmark tradition. So I think it begins with education and making people feel welcome and comfortable.
Veronica?
I would agree. The word that comes to mind when, Tom, you're speaking is sort of this rich potpourri. So we are a company that is representative of so many different backgrounds and experiences, life experiences. And the more we share them, the more they're a part of all the work that we do, the interactions that we have, the better we are, the richer we are as a company and as a field, right? And there's lots of things that we do as a company and will continue to do as a company in terms of diversity. As Tom said, sometimes the home office is the least diverse. Now, when we can be much more participatory as a company in terms of sharing ideas and problem solving and innovation, sometimes you think of all of those things happening top down. But when it's a company that's doing top down, bottom up, left, right, then we get this rich potpourri on so many levels. And so that's the journey that we're on, and we're taking baby steps. There's the whole dialogue of understanding my life experience and how it impacts me as a person. That's a whole different bucket of focus, as well as just the simple innovation, problem solving, all that stuff that we can do. So there's multiple pathways that we're beginning to embark on that really get at this conversation. And when I think of diversity, there's 3 pieces to it. It's recognizing the diversity, creating an environment of inclusiveness, and then ultimately getting to full participation. And that's really the pathway that we hope to really go down as a company.
Yeah, I really like the term full participation. I think it's so descriptive of what that ideal should look like. So 2 more questions sort of relative to that. How do you see I'm going to ask it in sort of two parts. How do you see benchmark specifically, and maybe the industry as a whole, getting more diversity at the home office level?
To me, it's simple. You have to decide to do it. And we've decided to do it. We're early in our commitment to doing so, but it's imperative that our home office start to look more like our communities, because our communities look like the population, more like the population at large than our home office does. And so it begins with a commitment at the top to becoming diverse and inclusive.
And I think it goes back to implicit biasness as well, because we tend to seek out, hire people that are like us, that look like us, that act like us, that have similar backgrounds, that have similar beliefs. So the more that we understand that our natural tendency is to go in that direction, so it's having the awareness, making the commitment. And one of the things that happens is when we look at different cultural backgrounds, they have very different resumes. And so once again, our implicit bias takes those people off the list, because there's certain words that we don't see in the resume, and or we see different words, but they're not the words that resonate with us. So a lot of it is awareness, commitment, and then real training to be, because our brain will trick us. So it's really about that training to not allow ourselves to fall into those traps. So we are really aware of how we're making decisions and why we're making decisions, and we're overcoming those little brain tricks that happen to us.
So the other question I want to shift on just a little bit is, what about diversity in residence? Now, you might argue that a lot of it, and I think there's truth in it, that some of it is strictly an economic issue, right? But I find myself wondering that, for instance, if you were to pair with a large African American church and joint venture on a senior living community, or an affluent Hispanic church, there may be some opportunities. And I don't know, have you thought about that side of it at all?
Yeah, I think there are some. We've seen examples around the country of others who've teamed up with different ethnic groups and the like, and I think those opportunities do exist. I think by realizing our vision of being a company that transforms lives through human connection, and by practicing diversity and inclusivity with everybody, that will also spill out into residents and families in the communities at large. Yeah. And I think that'll have that effect. So I think we'll absolutely find ourselves drawn to those opportunities, and I think that'll be a great benefit of what we're doing. I would just add, if I could, that I think doing this isn't something that we're doing because we're trying to check a box. We're doing this because we think it'll make us better. This is really about doing this because we'll be a better company, we'll be a better provider, we'll be better communities to live in, because diversity and inclusiveness will make us richer and more insightful and better able to be what we're striving to be, rather than this is not about anything other than that.
Well, and as we have talked, and particularly as Veronica and I have talked, it's been really clear to me it's about the right thing to do rather than checking a box or having to do. And honestly, there may be some other companies out there, so I don't want to be disparaging of anybody, but you're the first company that I've seen that's really said we're going to be very deliberate about that. And so that's really cool. I'm hoping a year from now, or maybe 2 years from now, we'll be able to hear the story. And I think that what you said about, as you get more diversity in the workforce, I think it will make your communities more attractive to a more diverse resident population. And that's cool.
Yeah.
So